Amy Hudson. I work
Sorry,
in,
Amy.
that's okay. I work in the admissions department here at CNC. I've been here for a few years, just moved over to admissions. And prior to that, I was actually a money coach with my own business for 8 years. So I know a thing or two about personal finances. So we're going to go through a bunch of things about financial wellness today, just about budgeting and things to expect. If you have any questions at all, please pop them into the chat and I'll be happy to answer them as we go through. So, oops. So ground rules from me. First off, there is no such thing as a stupid or silly question. If you have a question, please feel free to ask it. If you're uncomfortable asking it in the group, I'm sure you can even direct chat it and we can get an answer for you. When it comes to money, it's not something that people talk about or is taught very well. So there's definitely no such thing as a stupid question. Number two is be open to new ideas. Sometimes we get stuck in a rut with our thinking and we don't really realize that there is a better way of doing things. So try to be open to new ideas. Number three, ask those questions. If you have any of them, please ask. We're happy. That's why we're here. We're here to help you guys have the best experience at CNC. And lastly, have fun. Money can tend to be a heavy topic for most people, but I try to bring some joy and fun to it. So if that's the case, that is great. All right. So my first kind of question to you, and you don't have to answer this in the chat, I just want you to think about it, is what does the term financial wellness mean to you? It means so many different things to so many people. So I want you to think about that as you go through this little workshop and even afterwards. What does it mean for you to be financially fit, financially well? And where do you want to be financially? I actually had a great conversation with a coworker about this yesterday who brought it up with a group of friends, and they quickly realized that everybody has a completely different idea of what it means to be financially successful or feel financially secure. For some people, that might be millions of dollars, billions of dollars. For other people, it might just be buying groceries. So think about where it is that you want to be financially. Do you have financial goals? You know, is there, do you want to be a homeowner one day? Do you want to be able to support your family? What is it that motivates you towards financial goals? And the last thing I want you to think about, and even as we go through this workshop, is how do you feel about money? Because a lot of people end up having negative feelings about money. And that's not where we want you to be. We want you to feel good about your personal finances. So I want you to think about how you feel about it. So this is actually a survey done from a place called My Money Coach, and you can find it on the student financial aid page or financial aid page. Sorry, that came out funny. So tracking income and expenses, the most common ways that people budget are using a spreadsheet. That is the number one way to do it. I think it's nice because the spreadsheet does the math for you. And some days I feel lazy and don't want to have to do the addition and subtraction myself. The second way that people will do it is actually with a pencil and paper, just making columns, making notes, and writing it all out. Some people use an app. There are some really good apps out there, like You Need a Budget, but it does cost you. There's also Mint is another app that is widely used, and Envelopes is another one that is quite common with people. But a lot of apps, they don't necessarily do everything you need them to do, so you might run into some blips and bumps with those. And as you can see, a big chunk of the pie there doesn't even bother with doing a budget at all. And that can be a very slippery slope. So as we go through this, start thinking about what kind of budget you want to do, what kind of thing you want to use to track your money. Then the second thing that you're going to need to do is get all of your bank statements and print them off. And the reason I say this is because a lot of people think, well, I spend, from my past clients, I had one client that thought she spent about $1,200 a month on groceries. When we started actually looking at the numbers, she was spending closer to $3,000 a month on groceries. So numbers don't lie. So printing off bank statements. I know it's going to be a bit hard for you guys because some of you are here, some of you aren't. So, you know, you can start to do this every few months, especially once you're here. And then it'll give you a better idea, a better picture of where you are financially and what you might need to be spending and saving a bit better. And then you're going to, once you have all of those numbers, you're going to put them into a worksheet or spreadsheet. And again, if you're not here yet and you don't know what your numbers are going to be like, you can guess for now. Just make a guesstimate and then you can adjust those things later. So when you start building your budget, the things that you need to know is number one, how much you're making. Um, are you going to have any income coming in? Are you using student loans? Do you have a lump sum that you're going to be living off of? So those are things that you're going to need to know. You're going to need to know your fixed expenses as well as your variable expenses. So income, how much are you bringing in every month? If you have a job that fluctuates, so if you're self-employed or you only work seasonally, you're going to need to make sure that you're taking an average of what you're making so that you're not making your budget based on a number that you're not actually going to make. Make sure you include things like, this is going to apply to you guys because you're students, but a pension, any tax benefits, support, or other payments that you're getting on a regular basis. So any income you have coming from anywhere, if it's coming from an investment, from a family member, whatever that looks like, count it as income. And if you don't have any income and are relying on loans, don't worry, we're going to get to that. And we also have Ella on this call, who is an expert on all student finance stuff. So she'll be able to answer some more questions for you with that. When I talk about a fixed expense, I'm talking about things that happen every month that you can't change. So that's going to be something like your mortgage, your hydro, your electricity and your heat, childcare, taxes, your phone bill, internet, bank fees, your bus pass, which is actually included in your student fees. So don't worry about that one. Car payments, medical expenses, all of those types of things are things that are fixed that you don't really have control of. You can't change them. Then we talk about variable expenses. And so these are the things that are going to change or maybe don't happen every month. So your groceries, one month you might spend $400. The next month you might be out of everything and it costs you $700. So that's something that's going to fluctuate. Eating out, how many late nights did you have that you had to go to Starbucks? That's gonna increase your variable expenses. Your things like your tuition, it might not be the same each semester. Clothing, going out with friends, haircuts, vehicle maintenance, gas, parking, all of those things can change on a monthly basis. And that's why we call them variable expenses. So once you have all of your numbers or all of your guests, what are you going to do with it? So you're going to put all of that information into your budget. And the thing to look at is, number one, did you have extra money? If you do, was your math correct? I've had that happen more than once where somebody thinks, oh, look, I've got an extra few $100s. And we found that they missed adding in something and didn't actually have that. Were you missing anything? Maybe you forgot about having a haircut, and that's something that you're going to have to think about. And what are you going to do with that extra money when you have it? Are you currently investing? Do you have a savings account? Are you planning to put it towards your next year's tuition? Do you have an emergency fund? That's something that I really stress on everyone, is if you lose your job or if something happens to a vehicle, you need to have a bit of an emergency fund built up so that you've got a safety net. And is there something else that's big that you need to save for, like next year's tuition? If you have a negative number, take a look back at those expenses and see where can you cut back. Obviously, you can't cut back on a fixed expense like rent, but maybe you could cut back on Starbucks and groceries and be able to save some money there. Is it possible to make more income to cover your expenses? Picking up a second job or just tutoring someone for cash, whatever that might be, asking yourself, is it a need or a want before you make a purchase? I actually at one point had little stickers for my clients that I had them put on their bank cards that says, do I really need this? Because sometimes we have impulse purchases where we're out with a friend and they go, oh, you'd look great in that. So we buy it, but we didn't really need it. So thinking about those things, needs and wants. And then if you balance, if there's no money left and you're not a shortfall and you don't have an overage, then congratulations. But think about, is there anywhere else that you could be saving money or maybe negotiate to save a bit more money? So some of those money saving tips that I have for you is calling the cable internet person or your cell phone and inquiring about a lower rate. Often there's better deals that are out there than a plan that you might have been locked in for a while, and everything really is negotiable. The worst thing they're going to say is no, and then you're no different than you were right now. You can lower your grocery bill by meal plan and shopping sales. Every week, different sales come out. So you can actually plan your meals based on what the sales are in town that week. The Flip app, FLIPP app, it shows you all of the different flyers for the area that you can find the local sales that are going on. There's also a flash food app at Superstore where you can save on items that are nearing their expiration date. And that's one really good way. In our house, what we do is everybody picks a meal for the week, and that allows me to shop and plan because there's nothing worse than you buy one too many cucumbers or vegetables or lettuce, and the next thing you know, it looks like soup in the back of your fridge. You don't want to be wasting food. It's far too expensive right now. So plan your meals and then shop according to that list. You can ask your landlord about rent or broker payment changes. I've seen it a lot of times where people will have rent due on the first of the month in the entire amount, and that puts a really big strain on them financially. So it's okay to ask if you can split it into bi-weekly payments where you pay on the 1st and the 15th of the month. Maybe they can change the date a little bit. That will make things a little easier and give you some more room to breathe when it comes to money. That being said, there's no guarantee that they'll do it, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Looking at if you're paying unnecessary fees. So as a student, you should not be paying for a bank account. You can get a student account that is way cheaper than any other checking account, savings account that are out there. There's lots of different options. You just check out the different banks and see what their rates are for students. Generally, you have to show that you are enrolled full time in order to get those perks, but definitely do that because it's much nicer to pay $5 a month than it is to pay $15 a month in unnecessary fees. Looking at how much is going to interest. If you're putting things on a credit card, a loan, or a line of credit, making sure that you're not paying too much in interest fees. Again, this is something that's negotiable. You can call your bank. You can see if you can get a lower rate on things because they really would, in the end, love for you to pay it instead of just accumulating interest that you're not going to pay. Asking yourself if you forgot about a yearly payment. This is a big one that a lot of people do. Is there insurance or taxes that you hadn't thought about? So make sure that you take that big payment, say if it's your house tax bill, and you divide it by 12 and save for it every month. So then that way you know you're not going to have a big surprise bill at the end of things. You have the money saved up and it's not going to be a surprise. Same thing for haircuts. You know, you might not get a haircut every month, but if you put $10 away every month, then when you go to get your haircut every 3 months, you already have the cash for it. Any savings or emergency funds, make sure you put it in a separate account that you can't touch. Not everybody is this way, but a lot of people see if that money is sitting there, it's a temptation and they end up spending it. So if you put it somewhere else that you can't get to it easily, it makes it much easier to save. Free savings accounts that pay higher interest, such as a tax-free savings account. There's a lot of different online banking options now that have really better paying for the interest rates. So check out online, ratehub.ca has really good information where you can tell them what you're looking for, whether it's a loan or whether it's a savings account, and they'll give you the most up-to-date rates on who's paying the most interest or has the lowest rates for you. And then set a goal for a monthly goal of savings to bring you closer up to saving that faster. For an emergency fund, I always recommend people start off with a low number, like $500. And then once you get to that $500, move it to $1,000. The way I like to describe it is if somebody told me today, you should go run a marathon, I'm not going to make it out around the block before I'm not running anywhere. If you see me running, it's probably because something's chasing me. But if I ran a little bit every day, I would be able to build up that stamina to run a marathon. And it's the same thing with saving money. Don't set yourself a huge goal that's unattainable because then you're going to feel defeated. Start with little bite-sized chunks that make you feel good. More money saving tips. If you're paying high interest, call and negotiate a lower rate or look at zero balance transfer credit cards. Again, that ratehub.ca has some great different ones that you can actually apply to. And make sure you pay down the smallest amount first. It's tempting to start with the largest amount, but again, kind of like the same thing as building your savings, it's small victories. So if you can pay off little amounts and get that little one paid off, then it feels good. And then you want to do it again with the bigger amount. Getting a copy of your credit report. So once you're here and start building credit, you can get instant copies. A lot of banks now, most banks, all offer it as part of your banking package. You'll be able to see what your credit rate is. And what your credit is going to do is help you get more credit, help you attain things that if you want to buy a loan or need a loan, buy a house, do those kind of things, you need to make sure that you have a good credit score. But you can also visit equifax.com or transunion.ca to learn more about that. And it doesn't affect your score when you look at your own report. So that's a nice little bonus. Again, with the credit piece, actually, lower your credit limits. If you have a credit card that has a credit limit of say $5,000, but you know you only need $1,000, lower your limit. It actually looks better on your credit card to not, or on your credit score to not have huge amounts of credit available to you. And it's also less of a temptation to start spending on that credit card. Another one is get rid of credit cards altogether. A lot of people have been talking about the viral TikToks with the woman who is doing the cash envelope system. It is a really good way to budget if you can do that, because then you're not overspending. You've always got all just your little cash, and once that's gone, that's gone. I know my sister cannot have a credit card because she does not use it well. She ends up overspending on it, maxes it out, and then has to go through repaying it. So she now just doesn't have a credit card. She has one small one for emergencies, and it's not touched. So if you don't use it, don't keep it. Just get rid of it. Depending on the amount of debt you have, it might be smarter to bring it into one spot for lower interest. Again, a lot of you are just students starting out, so you're going to have that student loan, which I'm sure we'll be talking about later, but just make sure that you're not paying a crazy amount of interest. I personally don't like giving other people my money, so if you can find lower interest rates, definitely do that. And when it comes to paying down debt, don't pay just the minimum. Pay a bit more of you can, as much as you can from your budget. You don't want to be paying that interest to someone else. It would be nicer to have it in your own pocket. And again, don't make sure you're not paying bank fees. As a student, you should be able to not be paying bank fees. When it comes to asking for help, especially here at the college, ask right away. As soon as you know that you're going to be in trouble, don't wait till the last minute. Ask for help before things get too far. The college has many programs available to you, but there's a process that you have to follow, and it's step by step. So you can't just come in and say, I can't feed myself this week, I need help. You're going to have to go through a process in order to get that assistance. So please make sure if you know you're going to need help, reach out right away. And there's actually a quote at the bottom here. There's no shame in asking for help. It's one of the most courageous things you'll ever do. Sorry, I'm getting a little thirsty here. Do and will ever lead to great connection with those around you. And again, that comes back to don't be afraid to ask questions. Help is there for you, and we want to make sure things are good for you. So for more information, we'll see this website multiple times. I'm sure Ella will share it as well. Financial Aids and Awards at CNC. The link, we can make sure we share it actually. Oops, just popped it open by accident instead. I'll share it over here in the chat so that everyone has it. And this is where you're going to reach out if you do need assistance. All right, well, that's the end of my presentation. I'm just under time. Does anybody have any questions?
That was a great presentation. Please, you must have some questions. That was really great. I wish I would have met you many years ago, Amy. Great advice.
Just thinking from the last presentation, some of the questions that students did have was about finding housing and that kind of thing. Facebook Marketplace, Kijiji, looking online at options that are out there is really great. And financial aid is available for local students. Yes, that's going to be Ella's presentation, so I'm not going to step on her toes, but there's different kinds of financial aid for different scenarios. So she'll be able to answer more on that question. Thank you, Catherine.
Does anybody have any questions? You can just put them in the chat. You could send them directly to Amy or to myself, and we could answer, or Amy can answer.
And again, if you think about something that you're missing off the top of your head right now, rate help again. So Rate Hub. Oops, not Rate Hub. And there's all sorts of different ones out there. Even if you just go to Google, you can look at what's the best rate in BC for student loans, and you'll be able to find different things there. Or what's the best banking app? And of course, you'll get a ton of ads, but you can sort through it. And Rate Hub's nice because everything's in one place where you can just see it all. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. And again, if you have other questions, you can definitely plunk them into the chat as we go, or even message us. You can message us later and we'll help you out. Yeah, ratehub.ca is the one I mentioned earlier.
Does that look right, Amy?
Yep.
All
Perfect.
right.
Well, excuse me. Sorry. Well, thank you, Amy. That was a really great presentation. It was great information. I'm just going to share my screen here to get my.
You're really quiet, Ella.
Am I?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just try to speak louder. Is that better?
That's a little better. Yeah.
Oh no,
Just
I don't know how else to fix it, so I'll just try to speak louder.
Okay.
I'm just going to pull up my presentation here. There we go. So hi, good morning. My name is Ella Thomason. I work in the Financial Aid and Awards Office at CNC. I'm just going to give you a little overview of the services and resources available at our office that aim to help support you fund your education today. So if you do have any questions as I'm going through, as Sue and Amy said, feel free to drop them in the chat or anything, and I'll try to keep an eye on that as well. So.
Good morning, Ella.
Yes.
I think you need to try moving your mic or something. It's really hard to hear you, or look on your settings to increase your volume.
Okay, I will try to play around with that. Can you hear me any better now?
No, not really. Is it a
Still.
new headset?
No, it's the same one.
Maybe just try plugging in, unplugging it and plugging it in again.
Is that any better?
No.
Oh,
No.
dear.
Can you try without the headset?
Is that any better?
Yes. Oh, that's
Yes.
great.
Oh dear.
You sound great.
Yeah, sorry about this. I'm not really sure
What's going on?
It was better when you had it off.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll take it off again. I just couldn't hear you. That's the problem, but I'll try to play around with it.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, I can't hear you guys, but I will try to keep an eye on the chat. So,
Okay.
okay. Sorry about that, everybody.
No worries.
Okay, so like I said, my name is Ella Thomason. I work in the Financial Aid and Awards Office at CNC. Today, my goal is to just give you an overview of the services and resources available through our office that aim to help support you fund your education. So we just get started here. So CNC has a few resources, as you can see listed here. I'm just going to give you, I'm going to touch on each one. Sorry, I'm only going to touch on each of them briefly, but if you have any questions or want to know more about anything, please don't hesitate to reach out either in the chat or separately to financial aid. by email, phone, or anything that's easiest for you. I will have a contact list at the end there. But so first we have CNC's awards, our scholarships and bursaries. We have over 300 individual awards available to students and made possible thanks to our generous donors. These awards take two forms. We have our scholarships, which are awarded based on students' academic achievements or grades, and bursaries, which are awarded considering a student's self-reported financial need. We have excuse me. We have a lot of these awards, and they all have different sort of criteria. So they can be for specific programs or specific years of study, just for international students, just for domestic students, all sorts of different criteria, just depending on the individual award. And the great thing about this is that no matter who you are or what program you're in, there will be awards that you can apply for. So we definitely encourage students, all students, to apply for awards, which you can do once you have registered for classes, because they are a really great resource, and they can range from $250 all the way to $2,000. And yeah, I mean, we have quite a lot of them, and all students can be eligible for at least some of them, right? So most of our awards do open in October, and that's when you can apply for them once you've registered for classes. However, we do have multiple award openings throughout the school year. So we encourage students to keep checking in throughout the school year just to make sure they don't miss any awards that they could be eligible for. Oh, excuse me, sorry about that. We also have, for Canadian students, we have our adult upgrading grant. And so that is for students who are in academic upgrading or English as a second language classes or our job training classes. So the adult upgrading grant provides funding that covers your tuition and some other education fees for students in those programs. You just have to apply through our office. And if you have any questions, again, please feel free to reach out. We also have, for our students in those programs and under the upgrading grant, if you ever need access to like tech support or funding for internet costs or funding for new hardware like laptop, we have a separate grant for that you can apply to as well. So if you are in those programs, we do have support for that. We also have, for any Canadian students that were former Youth in Care with them under the ministry, we have several funding options, actually quite a few of them. I've just listed them here, but they are some really great resources, and you can just come to us at any questions and we can help guide you and direct you to anything that we think might help. But if you are a former Youth in Care, you can get your tuition costs covered, as well as these other funding options like the Youth Educational Assistance Fund, the Youth Futures Education Fund, and the Agreements for Young Adults. We can help kind of answer questions and direct you to resources that can help support your education with those. I won't dwell too much on the details about student loans, but if you do have one or are thinking about getting one, there are some things to keep in mind, and we in financial aid can help with that, whether that's helping you to apply for them, answer any questions, helping fill out any paperwork, because they can be quite confusing. In order to be eligible for a student loan, you do need to be in a loanable program. Most of CNC's programs are loanable, but some of them aren't, some weird ones, mostly trades. But if you have any questions about the loanability of a program, feel free to ask us and we can help advise you on that. For full-time loans, like you can see here, you will need to be registered in a 60% full-time course load. That generally looks like 3 classes a semester, I believe. So for the financial aid financial needs, aspect of student loans, you just need to demonstrate financial need, which essentially means, as you can see at the top here, is your education costs less your resources. And so your education costs here to take in consideration is your tuition, fees, books, and supplies. And then full-time loans also cover a moderate standard of living allowance. So that's your shelter, food, transportation, all that sort of thing. Part-time student loans they are for students who are enrolled in less than 60% of full-time course load. So again, that's going to be less than about 3 classes a semester generally. You need to be enrolled in a loanable program and be able to demonstrate financial need. The difference here with the part-time loan is that you will not have your standard of living allowance. So that's the difference from the full-time loan. And you can see here, it still covers the tuition and fees, books, supplies, transportation, childcare, but does not cover living allowance. If you have a student loan, you will not receive the funds until the first day of class. So that is something to keep in mind. We do try to make sure students know that because it can get missed. But if you have a student loan, we highly advise that you contact us in financial aid, and you can actually apply for it's called a fee deferral. So this means that if you are approved for it, you will be given until the end of the month that classes start to pay your tuition and fees, rather than the standard financial deadline, which is the 3 weeks before classes. So if you have a student loan, definitely remember that you can get a fee deferral, and that can help kind of offset the stress of it, really, about not getting the loan in time. We have a couple other funding options as well that you can see on the Financial Aid and Awards webpage. So in addition to the CNC awards, we also have a page that links all sorts of external awards. And we highly encourage students to look at those as well, because those are awards that aren't administered through CNC, but they are designed to help students, and they can definitely be just really helpful to help cover your education. So we do have a link or a page with all those links as well. And then Student ABC, which is where you can get the student loans. They also have scholarships and grants that aren't loans, so you don't have to pay those back. So those are also a resource to look at, as well as these other things down here, which is the Canada Apprentice Loans and the Canada Learning Bond. And you can learn more about those on the Student ABC's website as well, and on our CNC's Financial Aid and Awards website. So we do have emergency and hardship assistance funding. So this is funding that CNC has set aside from donors to support students in the event of sudden hardship. So this is open for international and domestic students, part-time, full-time, any program. If you experience any sort of unexpected financial hardship throughout the semester, please come and see us in Financial Aid and Awards, and you may be eligible to get this funding. You just have to apply for it and kind of explain your situation a little bit. You don't have to go into a huge detail, and we just want to help support you in the event of unexpected hardship or emergencies and stuff like that. Oh, and that's it. So that's my little presentation there. I will drop in the chat the email that you can reach out to for financial aid. And I believe if we don't have it, I will also link the Financial Aid and Awards webpage again for everybody. So
Thank you very much, Ella.
sorry, I just can't hear you. I'll jump in my phones again.
Oops. Thank you very much. That was wonderful. Very informative. Does anybody have any questions? Lots of information there.